It's a picture information language. That's what it is. There's information in it.
He's put 15 years of his life on the line. Everything in his life has been for this project.
And I lost everything as well.
Hi, well, my name's Nat Cargis. I'm the Operations Director of MiiM Media Limited. I've been a long-term friend of Tim's, and in my, if you like, my alternative world, I'm actually and have been a hairdresser for 40 plus years. And it's through that medium that this whole process started. And this is Tim.
I'm Tim Harris, and I'm a designer. I'm the founder and the inventor of the MiiM language.
I've known Tim for 30 plus years, through mutual friends, actually. Again, a creative friend that used to do all my things. We're long-term friends that used to do all my graphics, and actually we're long-term family friends of Tim. And Tim had moved in to the area again, very close to my particular business. He'd moved back in with his father, who was still alive then, and started coming in to have his haircut. So, as is the want always when you're talking to your hairdresser or your barber, and you know, what will hopefully unravel in this podcast is the many layers and the complexities that Tim has. One of them being he's a very private person and very guarded, and that's essentially due to his vulnerability. However, as you develop a relationship and as you start to get more trusting with somebody, you know, things opened up. And I'd heard about this project. I knew absolutely nothing about the project itself, not a jot, just little smatterings of. Didn't really know what it was at all. But my biggest concern always lies, if you like, with people's welfare more than anything else. Because you know, one of the things that you pick up on when you're seeing somebody regularly, because with our job, it's an interesting one in as much that other than, let's say, a general practitioner or somebody's partner, nobody gets as physically close to somebody else as a barber or a hairdresser, because you are within very close proximity. And that displays an awful lot of trust for anybody that whose hair you're cutting or you're talking to. And so, as time went on, I thought something's not quite right. So, Tim will fill you in.
Yeah, well, I've tried to do this particular thing a few times. It's very, very hard. At the end of the day, there's over 6,500 languages in the world. And I thought it was a good idea to add another one. So, quite strange. But it does. It sort of unites, because it's a picture language. It unites all languages, really. And people can still use their normal tongue or language, whatever you want to say, and keep their dialects, but you talk in pictures. And that's what's so exciting and innovative about it.
I know I'm in this particular introductory podcast, and I will be talking a lot, but what I'm really trying to establish here, what I'm really trying to kind of come through is, or bring through, which is we run this company together. We run this business together. The whole concept, the whole project, everything we do is together. We've had our fallouts, we've had our great times, we've had our really bad times. But, you know, it's a particularly kind of strong male thing not to discuss your emotions. But we do, and we do actually, you know, discuss an awful lot.
Yeah, we do.
But what I'm never able to do is really, and because I know this is a journey for Tim. It's a journey for both of us. But for Tim in particular, as I've already indicated, there are so many layers. And going back to my original point about the introduction, as I started to peel those layers back when I was seeing them every week, there was a vicious circle that he was in the respect that he's created this absolutely phenomenal idea and this project that can help so many people, yet the betrayal and the what's the word I'm looking for? The way that he's been treated and how he was taken advantage of how he was taken advantage of, just sent him down there again. He was at a real low ebb because he'd been hammered and hammered and hammered. You know, the analogy is he's a little boy in a sweet shop, and the guy's created this thing, and the people he's dealing with know that it's a good project, but what they're trying to do is see it for how much money they can make out of it and how quickly they can do it. And they're missing the practicals. You know, they're just seeing pound signs. So creatively it was affecting him. His home life was his father was terminally ill. All of this is going on, and he's just, you know, sinking into this place where I thought this isn't good. And so although we'd known each other for the length of time we had, it was important to me to try and dig up a little bit more and say, listen, and for the first time actually brazenly say to him, look, what's going on here? Well, something's not quite right. You know, we've been talking about this for 2 years. Nothing's progressing. And that's when he opened up. And that's when I thought, well, you know, I'm a great believer in destiny. I'm a great believer in, certainly a great believer in asking the universe for what you want. You know, if you don't,
Definitely.
if you don't do that, it's not going to happen. But, you know, I'm a great believer in fate. And there happened to be something else going on at the time that just coincided.
Yes.
And so that's when I came up with the suggestion. And as I say, I'll hand you back over to Tim and then I'll elaborate again.
Yeah, so I'm seeing that, and that says, I know a certain gentleman that might be able to help us. So this gentleman eventually came to see us, didn't he?
He did.
And I think it's hilarious, basically, because I sold him the idea on the language by the phrase, the sky is full of snow geese. And I'm thinking, really? And as I explained in the language, like pictures, it's to say it's an overcast day. And he said, I said, it's Gaelic. I said, that's what they say. And he said, yes, it is. I can speak Gaelic. So that was the third slide, and I proceeded to show him 170 other slides, didn't I? That's something that you're definitely not supposed to do.
Yeah.
But it's like anything. To explain the language, I had to do the principles, say, by the way, this is the complexities of it, and this is the simpleness of it. And he got it all there. Well, you were learning at the same time, weren't you, really? Like looking at really.
You're right. To put it into context, at this stage, I still wasn't really that clued up on what the whole thing was about. True. It really wasn't. So I thought, well, okay. Tim was coming to see me and said, I prepared this slideshow and I've done all of them. Great, you know. So as I say, 1 hour into this show, 1 hour into this whole kind of demo and kind of trying to tell David, who's now our chairman, to you know, what the whole project was about, basically his then aging laptop just gave up the ghost.
Yes.
And so he's like, oh,
yeah.
And David, and the classic one-liner that David, our chair, as I say, was himself a very, very interesting man. That's a whole different conversation. He just said, Tim, I got it an hour ago. Okay?
Yeah, he did.
I got it. I got it after 10 minutes. Okay, you don't have to show me anything else.
Absolutely.
Okay, so but Tim was that intent and that bothered about it and that kind of, I'm really going to show you everything about it. So it takes a while for people. You know, as we will evolve in this conversation, it takes a while for people to really grasp the whole concept of it. You know, human nature is a very, very complex thing. And when you're talking to people about something either that they're either not involved in, have no interest in, or alternatively have no need for, you get fobbed off. And so to meet somebody, you know, immediately, to have three people who have got a synergy about them and say, yeah, I get this. And we kind of knew how many people it would help. But as the whole thing progressed organically, we thought, actually, this can help an awful lot of people.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about it, obviously, because it's something very close. But again, it needed to be done.
It did, yeah, it did. It
needed to be done, and it was a challenge from a mental health issue, but there you go.
Well, there's all kinds of things. I mean, Tim, you know, people. I'm guessing people will be able to people be able to see that, Tim's quite anxious as we speak. And
Yes.
I know I talk an awful lot, but what I'm
Absolutely.
trying to do is pull out as much as I can from him because he forgets an awful lot of things that happened. And when I tell you that when you're dealing, even 3.5, 4 years on, when we're reviewing things that we've done or pulling more of the language out that we haven't used for a while, you look at it and you think, this is clever. This is genius. That's like, wow. And a lot of the best things that have come out as we've progressed have happened just by accident or organically.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, okay, good. That's how it should be, really. And we're convinced that in the long term, when MiiM finds its home, it'll be because somebody left the field, has seen it and said, oh, do you know what? I think that'll be good for whatever. But he's put 15 years of his life on the line. Everything in his life has been for this project.
And I lost everything as well.
He has. He lost his marriage.
House.
He's got a very strong family with his kids. He does see his ex, but he's lost the core, for all of you people that love anything to do with cognitive therapy or anything to do with person-centered counselling of that nature, whether it's especially Maslow, the lower level needs are so important with everybody. And Tim lost that bottom layer of the pyramid. His basic love, his home, his family, his warmth, everything that we take for granted is gone. So it was important that because of what's happened in the past, that we started to put everything on an even keel. And my responsibility, I felt a massive responsibility it's a dual-sided thing. It's not just the project. It's getting Tim back in the human race, back into the normal that everybody considered to be normal. Yeah, and that's why it's been a challenge for me. Not just holding his hand; it's everything. Everything. His whole life had lost its structure, but we're not surprised, and I'm not surprised because of the hammering he's had. So, the last 3.5 years has been progressively building this whole project up. And time is what does it. We're finally at a stage where people are now starting to take it seriously rather than whatever. It's like emojis, or they're like, we'll talk about the language.
Definitely not.
Or emoji cons, or it's like such and such. So all of these factors happened not because of what we've done or what we're doing. It's because of the language. These things are happening because people who are looking at it are thinking, actually, this is quite clever. And it's time, and only time that'll do that.
What is it? That's an interesting question. Well, it's a way to unite every language, really. It's...
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
What was your original concept? What was the original... Why did you always say this to me, there's a particular reason you created this language?
Well, there is... You mean the disaster?
Well, there is that. No, but it's the Inuit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the way yeah, true.
Right.
Yeah.
So
the way I designed it, again, 48 years, I think, in design industry. It's got to be simple, and it's got to be cross translation. So, can an Inuit talk to a desert dweller? That was key. So every time I did something, it was like, right, will these two opposites be able to know what's being said? That was, again, one of the many criteria that I had. Very, very tight. And again, there's lots of colours, but the colours mean things. Red, for instance, is something that's going away. Something that's blue is coming towards you. Use that a lot, especially in far and near, different things like that. So there's a lot going on. It's a picture information language. That's what it is. There's information in it, and the way I structured it, but you've got what I class as explanation brackets and word breaks, and what you put within those brackets is what you're trying to say. So it opens it up, totally opens it up for all sorts of different people to say different things. And you can go, well, why have you put that in there for? And they will explain it and we'll all learn. It's not, because it's not just, there you go. The research that could be involved in this is immense, because the time is ready now, because the digital era now, everybody's ready. And it was when I was at I was doing my degree to go on to a PGC. And while I was on a mid-degree course, a young gentleman called Darren, I think, or Darrell, and he's one of those first adapters, or adopters. Have this, I'll have that, and he got the phone. Anyway, I said to him, what on earth is this thing? It was an iPhone. And he said, what's this? They pressed it and they all jiggled. And I thought, they're ready. The technology is now ready for what I've got in mind. So then I started to work on it, because I invent all sorts of things, but I have to wait for the time to be right, or whatever. Quite strange. But yeah, so that was very interesting, the fact that you could move things about and you could do sorts of, so I thought, wow, triggered it off. So I set about with a blank sheet of paper and went, right, make a mark, do something. And it was very, very hard. So I researched an awful lot, as much as I could, and because I can't read and write, I've got the reading and writing ability of a 12-and-a-half-year-old, so it does limit it. So I left an awful lot of documentaries. I watched everything, everything I could get hold of. Norman Chomsky, Steven Pinker, Stephen Fry. I just love that guy talking. He's just brilliant. So anything was any information, and it helped me build the language. So that's what I set about. I set about building it with all sorts of information. And one of the not crazy but quite odd. I thought, well, if I want to know what people are talking about, you can go on the internet and you can find what's trending. But the best way, if you really want to know what people are talking about, is go out into the real world and see what they're talking about. So strangely, I used to put earphones in, never plugged them in, but I used to sit behind different people. They could be, young people, old people, all sorts of people, and, well, the full mix, and just sit behind them on buses, trains, all sorts of public transport, and listen. I just listened and took notes of what they talked about. And then that narrowed the language down. What do people talk about? What are the main things? Because there's certain things, words that I don't particularly bring up on a daily basis. So that's how it evolved, sort of hands-on and research. And again, because I'm dyslexic, autistic, I've been not reading information as such. I'm observing it. Listening, observing. So I've probably got a completely different knowledge base from a lot of people, because I've looked at it differently. Because, well, I got into art college through lying, because they said, well, you get 5 O-levels, and I went, yeah, and never did. I was lucky to come out with a spirit level, let alone O-level. But I got first one CSE. That was it. In art, that was it. The rest of it was rubbish, absolute rubbish. I got unclassified. That takes skill. How do you get unclassified English and arithmetic in CSE? Not even O-level, But there you go. That's what I was dealt with. But I actually went into art college and totally out of my comfort zone. And I remember one day, because there's not a lot of educated people there, and this guy came out with, oh, that's insipid. And I remember because I was only about 16, I think, got to remember that. I have to try and keep this word in my head, insipid, what did it mean? And it's still lifeless, tasteless. Again, it's pictures. It's pictures. And that's what's come out of it. Everything is pictures, even sign language. It's pictures. We're talking pictures, realistically.
Can I just, at this point as well, just inject some of the I feel there should be some kind of bullet points as to everything that Tim has just mentioned. So what makes the language unique in particular is that it's multi-platform. So it can be written by hand on formed cards, as well as if you want to, written on a dusty surface. It can be it literally, because the genius of what it is essentially it's a series of dots and lines, and it's very simplistic in that respect. There's nothing complex about
That was the hard part, making it look simple.
You know, we've trademarked the name Pictrons because they're electronic pictures. However, it is multi-platform, and very few people have been able to put a whole alphabet of cohesive understanding together. So it's a, you know, if you want to use the official term, it's a morphological symbology.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it works because it's a language as opposed to just a series of lozenges with pictures in. But its genius is the fact that it can actually inform you what a word means, at the same time describe a place, an item, an animal, a person, or anything of that nature, which other languages can't do.
And there's information in it rather than just A, B, C's and G's and this and the other. So for people like me, again, when I was little, it was dreadful. You give me a book, I haven't got a clue whether it's a recipe for rabbit or whether it's a pirate story, unless it's a picture of something, you know, and that's the thing, and that's all a lot of people don't understand. So hopefully...
Yeah, it's taken me 3.5 years to get to a stage where it's important to understand that the reason this whole language was formulated because of the way Tim is, and because of his dyslexia, and in the last 2 years he was also kind of diagnosed as being autistic as well, certainly on the spectrum. Essentially, the way he spells, the way he writes, the way he looks at things, it's important that we leave that as much as we possibly can in all our literature.
Yeah.
Because the very people that we're trying to target are people that have learning weaknesses, that have the issues, that need this language. And the last thing we want to do is homogenize it and, you know, pack it in because that's acceptable. Let's form it in this sense. So it's important that it's seen through the eyes of somebody in a similar situation as Tim. When you first see it, one of the reasons that people are dismissive of it is the immediate thought process, which was mine, is somebody's done that before. Easy. No, it's got to have been done before. And then you think, yeah, whatever. And then you start looking, and then you think, actually, no, I don't think anybody has. Well, no, it must have been, because it's that simple. Now, having had an insight into some of the things that Tim's created, there are other things that have nothing to do with MiiM and nothing to do with this fantastic project that would make this look like small fry. His creativity, his kind of inventive nature is astounding. As I say, if I hadn't seen it, I wouldn't believe it. But even this is big, but the other things he's created were like what? Well, nobody's ever done. What do you mean? Wow. Okay. Let's not even go there because we're scratching the surface with this. Never mind all of that. Let's not go there. But the whole idea, what people can expect of the language, we think there are 3 main sectors that the language can help an awful lot of people. First of all, it's educationally, because we do believe the language can help people to understand if they have issues. As I say, I've already used the expression, a learning weakness like dyslexia, like dyspraxia, ADHD, even neurological conditions, if they are early onset dementia, even stroke victims, anybody in that situation can be enabled to communicate easier in the sense that using Pictrons will enable them to either be explained a particular subject, genre, or ailment, or give them the ability to communicate quickly. And also, from a clinical perspective, any clinician can actually use it to communicate as well. But we'll go into that deeper. So educational's one, as in helping those with learning weaknesses. Medical for diagnosis, prognosis, communication. And the third one is digital. Now, we do have a game launched, which is called Guess MiiM. And the idea behind Guess MiiM is that it's a fun way to learn the language. But it's effectively Wordle. Tim created it 15 years ago, in actual fact. It's one of 20 games they've created. But this idea is that if you cannot read and write, if you find it difficult to read and write, then you're unable to play a game like Wordle. Whereas using Guess MiiM, you're looking at the Pictrons and you're trying to basically spell or listen or understand what that phrase or that sentence means. But also in all of the environments that I've already discussed, whether it's, medical or educational or communicative, translatory or anything of that nature, in its digital format, we expect that the MiiM communication side of it, the actual MiiM app, the communication app, will actually enable people to discuss whatever they want to worldwide. It can either be made white label for local authority when there's people now they're dealing with migrants in a hospital scenario. If you're abroad and you can't speak the language, you'll be able to communicate with each other worldwide. If you're anybody adopts it on their platform, they'll be able to voice activate it and say, "Hi, how are you?" and speak to somebody in Iceland who's only speaks Icelandic, because they'll be able to read the MiiM language and then send their voice message back, which will return in MiiM. So the options is huge in a translatory sense, in a communicative sense. 3 of the main sectors, and those are the ones that we've just pursued and are thinking about.
Translation's another one, isn't it?
Yeah,
as well?
translation,
There's an awful lot of
yes.
money in translation.
All of that. Labels, food allergy warnings, caustic and hazardous substance warnings. If you can't read that warning. MiiM gives you the ability to.
The possibilities of MiiM are endless.
So, yes, it's to say the whole project, the biggest difficulty that we've found as time's gone on is trying to narrow things down.
Yeah, it is very hard.
We're at an exciting stage. I've alluded to it already in the respect that for the first time, genuinely for the first time, we're dealing with, credible organisations. For example, the Dyslexia Association. They have been really, really kind to us, seen the project, like what they've seen, and we're doing a focus group together because they believe it has potential to help people.
And that's key because, again, that's what I want. I want to help people because at the end of the day, I couldn't read a book. I had no idea what it's about. So you can actually do an awful lot more because again, one of the ways we show people the language is we come up with a word which hemoglobin, like really, but hemoglobin it's a microscopic organism that helps with oxygen in blood. Like you can do that in pictures, but you give anybody the word hemoglobin, they might say, okay, it's scar tissue and it's this and it's that and the other, but they won't know everything about it. But this, you can see in a glance what it does. And again, people that know an awful lot more can add more. And this is the nice way that the language builds, because you can be talking to somebody and they'll add something in a language, or they might put something in a different order, and all of a sudden it completely changes and you go, whoa, that's why I want to say that word. And again, it's very exciting. And again, it is an open playbook for everybody. Okay, there's rules. There's rules to the language, like most things. Mind you, not as vague as I before E except after C.
No.
But only in some cases, which I've noticed. So it's not a hard and fast rule.
There's nothing elitist about MiiM.
No.
My favourite one, I'm not saying we're not making it easy. It's not easy all the time with the language.
No, it isn't.
However, it's, the clever aspects of it, the classic is, I know, Tim, I always ask Tim this one, because this is for me, it is genius. It illustrates the full breadth and depth of what MiiM can do. So Tim will explain to you, there's a particular animal that we can describe that isn't described in most symbology, in most pictorial languages. It's just a picture of something rather than explaining what that is. Yeah, it'll be a picture of a room or a bed or a house or whatever. MiiM is not a pictorial language in that sense.
No.
It's actually a way to communicate. It can be as specific as mentioning a sensation,
Yes.
a job, an environment, the size of somebody, their sexuality. Everything that you want to discuss, you can discuss using Pictrons.
Absolutely.
Unlike being shown a picture of somebody pointing or, look, it's a room or it's a car. But,
So,
go
but
on.
what that's referring to is penguin. And basically, the language is say what it is. It's a black and white bird that lives in an extremely cold climate down south, and
it doesn't fly.
And it doesn't fly.
Yeah.
So
It's the same as
that
hemoglobin.
says more about, absolutely. It says more about it, and this is the opportunity. So it's an opportunity for everybody. When we do eventually launch the app, it'll be their realm, and it is. It's their realm. It's like, okay, once I've learned this, I can do something amazing with it, and that's what's going to be key.
Thank you for listening to You, Me Talk Pictures podcast, brought to you by MiiM Media. If you would like to find out more about the work that MiiM Media are doing, then please head to the show notes for more details.